What's up everybody, I'm Jason and welcome back to some more tips and tricks for the Canon EOS R5. So in this video I'm going to kick off a couple short mini-series in this talking about the radio communication capabilities in the R5. So Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. And in this video we are going to focus on Bluetooth specifically. Now before I get into the details here, the usual disclaimer does apply. Most of what I'm going to be covering also applies to all of Canon's other mirrorless and DSLR cameras that support radio capabilities built in. So cameras like the R3, the R6, even some of the DSLRs like the 5D Mark IV and the 1DX Mark III. However, I own and shoot EOS R5s. That's specifically what I'm using for testing, and therefore I cannot make any guarantees about how applicable all of this stuff is to the other cameras, but as I said, the software is largely the same between each. But again, demonstrating with the R5. So the R5, like most of Canon's R series cameras at this point, has two radio systems built in. Wi-Fi, which I'm going to talk about in another video because it's way more complicated and capable than Bluetooth, and Bluetooth. Bluetooth in the case of the R5 is Bluetooth 5 low energy, and low energy Bluetooth essentially focuses on minimizing power consumption at the camera or in the device as much as possible. The consequence of Bluetooth low energy being very low energy is that it has limited bandwidth, and that translates to a limited amount of control that you can have when you're actually working with it on the camera. So in shooting mode, you basically have the ability to trigger the shutter and autofocus system. You cannot change exposure settings. You do not get a live image. There's nothing like that. So it is basically a wireless Bluetooth-based remote release, for lack of a better way to put it. You can also do some things in image review, so you can navigate, you can start a slideshow, you can do magnification, zoom in, zoom out on an image that you've already reviewed. Now all of this, when you're doing that in image review, is displayed on the back of the camera, or more likely the way you're doing this is that you have the camera plugged in with an HDMI cable to, say, a TV, and it's being displayed on the TV so that you can basically navigate a slideshow type thing from your camera or from your phone while you're showing it on a TV. And of course, the final thing that you can do from your smartphone or with the Bluetooth low energy on the R5 is GPS tagging for your images. So first we're going to jump into some Bluetooth setup stuff and functions. Now there's two ways that you can communicate with the camera over Bluetooth. You can either pair a smartphone with the camera and use Canon's Camera Connect app, or you can use a BRE1 remote control. Now, I don't have a BRE1 remote control, so I won't be getting into the details on that in this video. Now, of course, for GPS tagging, if you want that capability, you do need to pair a smartphone. That is the only Bluetooth compatible way to do GPS tagging as things currently stand. Okay, so we're going to go through the process of Bluetooth pairing a R5 to a phone. So in this case, I have an iPhone 12 mini. The process is very similar on Android. Now, one thing you do want to make sure that you do when you are doing this on your phone, at least for Apple phones or iOS phones, is you want to make sure that you don't have your settings app open or the Bluetooth page open, as that can make things work a little wonky. So the first thing that we want to do on our phone is tap this little icon up in the corner that allows us to connect to our camera. Now we're going to jump over to the camera. I should add, this process is a little fiddly for some reason. At least that's been my experience with it. So you kind of have to jump through things fairly quickly. On the camera, we're going to scroll to the Network 1 menu, and we're going to make sure that Wi-Fi and Bluetooth settings are set to enable. So Bluetooth, obviously, because we're pairing with Bluetooth to our camera or to our phone. Wi-Fi, because the camera won't let you actually make any of the connection settings without having it enabled as well. So then we're going to scroll up to the top menu entry, Wi-Fi Bluetooth connection. Select it and then scroll to the second page with the 5 different icons. Now, if you haven't already set up a Wi-Fi connection or Bluetooth connection, this will be the first page that you land on. From that menu, we're going to select Connect to Smartphone, and then we're going to say Add Device to Connect to. The camera now prompts us if we would like it to display a QR code. This QR code will link to the Canon Camera Connect app in your phone's platform's respective app store. So the Play Store for Google and Android devices, the App Store for iOS devices. Anyway, I already have it installed, as you can see on my phone, so I'm going to say do not display. Now, for this video, we're pairing via Bluetooth, not Wi-Fi, so we're going to do pair via Bluetooth. And then it's going to notify us that once the camera is paired, it stays connected even when it's turned off, and to stop it communicating, turn the camera to airplane mode. You can also turn off the Bluetooth radio if you'd want to disable that as well. So we're going to hit OK, then we're going to hit scan on our phone, and then we're going to select the cam from the list, and we're going to hit pair, and this happens a lot. So we're going to just repeat the process. First, we're going to jump into settings and Bluetooth and make sure that the camera is not in the list. Close that, back to the app, back to the connected cameras thing. As I said, this is a little finicky and you do kind of have to go through it fairly quickly. Pair with Bluetooth, OK, scan, select the camera, click pair. Now the camera is prompting me to connect to my smartphone. I'm going to hit OK again. They're going to do their thing to communicate, set up, and link, so I can now hit OK on the phone, OK on the camera, and they are now paired. So, as you noticed in that demo there, Bluetooth does occasionally run into problems. And you've probably seen this with earbuds or other Bluetooth devices that you've paired with your phone. In general, the method that I go about with troubleshooting this is essentially that you go into your phone's Bluetooth menu and you forget the device from your phone so that the device is no longer paired on your phone. You do the same thing on the camera. You unpair, you go into the wireless connections menu, you go to the smartphone menu, you select your device and you unpair it from the camera. When both of those things are done, you just repeat the process of going through the whole pairing process again, and that generally will fix things. Okay, so with the camera and phone synced, let's take a look at what you can do with the Bluetooth connection to your camera. So first and foremost, you can have GPS capabilities. So to set that up, you will need to go back to the Network One menu, go down to GPS device settings, select GPS device, and then set it to smartphone, and you will get your GPS tagging from your phone. Now, there are some requirements for this. Specifically, your phone has to have location services enabled. Now, I am speaking strictly for iOS. You have to have location services enabled, and you have to have the app active, or you have to have it set the privacy settings for the Canon Camera Connect app set to always be able to use location services. That's what I usually do when I'm going to be using the GPS. I switch that on my phone, go into settings, privacy, location services, and set it to always. So that's one thing you can do. The next thing you can do is use the Bluetooth remote controller. And the Bluetooth remote controller offers a couple of features. Now, you don't get a live view of image because there's obviously not enough bandwidth in Bluetooth 5 low energy or Bluetooth low energy to support sending a live image. However, you can start and stop recording. So you can take a picture. One thing to be aware of is that when you try to take a picture in this mode, if your camera is set to autofocus, it will try to focus, and if it can't achieve focus, it will not release the shutter. Camera mode, so still photos, you can also flip the camera over to video recording mode, and you can turn on and shoot video remotely. Additionally, you can switch into playback mode, and you can navigate through the images on your camera using essentially a D-pad. The middle button works something like set, but not quite. The zoom out and zoom in will zoom out and zoom in. This button down here in the corner is a slideshow. It will go through and play all the images as a slideshow. Now, reason for this is essentially you could have obviously it's not displayed on the phone. It will be displayed on the back of the camera, or if your camera is plugged into the TV through an HDMI cable into a TV or something like that, then this will also work there. The other thing you can do is from within the Bluetooth settings or Bluetooth paired phone, you can increase the capabilities by creating a local wireless network. Now to do this, you would simply tap one of the options on the phone, such as images on camera or remote live view shooting. And it will prompt you to simply tap through a couple of prompts and you will have the camera operating a Wi-Fi network in access point mode, and you connect to that, and then you have the full capabilities. Now, this wouldn't be one of my videos on anything camera related unless I did some power testing, and Bluetooth low energy is, and GPS tagging is no difference there. So I was interested in this because when Canon, with the GPS, dedicated GPS hardware in cameras like the 5D Mark IV, I found that there was basically a negligible power drain on the camera, and I could shoot for basically as long as I would without it enabled, with it enabled. And I was a little bummed at the whole replacing of the integral GPS with a Bluetooth for connection for GPS, partly because I was concerned about power consumption and partly because I find it a little bit more clunky. Now that said, what I did for this test was to pair my phone and my R5, set up my camera to continuous shooting at continuous low at 3 frames a second, and then hook up my TC80N3 intervalometer or timer release to the camera and set that to shoot a burst for 3 seconds, so about 9 images, give or take, depending on focusing and whatnot. A 3-second burst of images every 3 minutes. And there's obviously a lot of ways to go about doing this Bluetooth or power testing in this case. And I wanted to do something that I felt was reflective of kind of how I use the camera in practical shooting. So in reality, I go out, I take some, find a composition I like, take a couple of pictures, changing some things picture to picture, put the camera back down, sling it, move to another composition or look for another composition. So I did this, I repeated this process 20 times, both with the Bluetooth radio on and with the Bluetooth radio off, to get an hour test in either direction or in the 2 modes. Now, one thing I should point out is the power settings on the camera. The TC80N3 will power up the camera 1 minute before shooting. I don't know why it's there. I think it's to allow a flash to cycle or recharge, but it would power up the camera 1 minute before shooting, and then my power saving settings on the R5 would keep the power on for the screen, viewfinder, etc. for a minute post-shooting. So all in all, there was only a minute of off time in each cycle of this test. Now for the phone, I used my iPhone 12 mini. It was fully charged when I started. So the results from the test were as follows. With the GPS system off, or with Bluetooth off completely, in fact, none of the radios were on the camera, I started at 176% battery level, or approximately 25.6 watt hours available in the camera. The reason that I'm above 100% is I have a battery grip with 2 batteries, and the way Canon reports battery power is percentages 0 to 100 for each battery. So I'm just summing them together here. Anyway, the test ended at 141%, or approximately 21.6 watt hours available in the batteries, for a total consumption of 26% split across the 2 batteries, or 4 watt hours. Now, with the GPS on, I started the test the second time. The batteries were at 140%, or approximately 21.5 watt hours. At the end of the test, the end of the hour, the batteries were down to 115%, or 17.6 watt hours, and I used 25% of the battery, or approximately 3.8 watt hours. Now, let's get something straight up out of the way. Turning the Bluetooth on didn't make the camera more power efficient. It just doesn't work like that. What you're seeing here with respect to these numbers is the fact that the error bars in this test far exceed the error or the amount of power that Bluetooth consumes. So Canon only reports battery capacities in 1% increments, and that's where you're seeing with the errors here, the rounding of the outputs. So essentially demonstrating what I was saying at the beginning about Bluetooth low energy using essentially negligible power. Now, on the iPhone, I started the test at 100% capacity. Might not have been the smartest place to start the test, given that 100% may not have actually been 100%, or that could be a very big percent, depending on how charged the phone is. I saw 1% power drain, or 1% loss of battery power capacity, however you want to put it, over that hour of testing with Bluetooth. So what does this say? Well, first of all, take these numbers with a bit of a grain of salt. There's a lot, especially on the phone side of things, there's a lot of variables involved in how much power your phone is going to consume doing something. But largely, the power consumption on the phone side of things, providing GPS information to the camera, appears to be negligible. I checked a couple of times, the GPS was running, I was getting GPS data on the images. Everything seemed to be working. Now, on the camera side of things, the same thing's true. Basically negligible power consumption. It was indistinguishable, or the power consumption was so small, it was indistinguishable between the two tests within the error bars that the camera allows. So, essentially, I'm not terribly concerned if I have Bluetooth enabled and GPS tagging enabled that my camera is going to run out of batteries in, half the time that I would have normally expected it to run out of batteries. So I'm going to wrap that up here. If you found this useful, or at least a bit informative, let me know by hitting that like button. If this kind of thing seems like it might be your kind of thing, please consider subscribing if you're not already. Also, please share this if you think it might help somebody you know. Remember, it's free, and it makes you look like a hero in the process. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.